welcome to Homestead Miami Speedway, just south of Miami, Florida, for the final practice for the NASCAR Busch Series. Our champion has already been decided. Martin Truex Jr. wrapped it up a week ago at Darlington. He and Kyle Busch have their positions locked up, as does Greg Biffle, who will finish third in this championship run. But that's beside the point. We've got a final race to go at Homestead Miami Speedway.
Yeah, I mean, this is race number 34 for these boys. Their schedule's only 2 races shy of the Nextel Cup Series. And when you look at Martin Truex Jr., the 8 car, I talked to those guys this morning, they still have their game faces on. They want to end this season with one more win in the win column.
And the thing is right now, Larry, look at it like this. No pressure. Guess what? There's no take any prisoners. Just go out there and go as hard as you want to. This type of racetrack should suit Martin Truex and his team's driving style. So I would be worried about having this guy here looking for a victory here at the end of the season. And I think Bobby D's been looking for something. I believe he found it. What's going on, Bob?
That's right, Jeff. Martin Truex Jr. really looking at the win here at Homestead, and that's because it's very important to him for a personal reason. And that's because when Jr. won the championship, his first one in the Busch Series, he had 7 victories. Well, Martin Truex Jr. has got that championship, but he only has 6 wins. So this week in the shop, the team kind of razzing each other back and forth, saying, Martin, you got to step up to the plate, man, and get this victory. As far as his car goes, he said he just missed a little bit during qualifying. He went out way too early, but he says this is an excellent race car, and he thinks he could match Junior with that 7th victory.
But what a season this team has had. You talked about the 6 wins, Bob. 17 top 5s, 25 top 10s, no DNFs. And he did run this race a year ago, finished 2nd.
We'll put it into perspective. We say only 6 wins. In his Busch North career, he only won 5 in 62 starts. So in one season to put 6 wins in the wins column is really amazing for this young guy.
It's pretty incredible. And the thing I think is more impressive is when they started the season off, they were basically kind of like, we're going to run a few races and see how things go. And all of a sudden, it kind of like started hitting. They started winning. They started looking really competitive. The next thing you know, they run for the championship and they were able to pull it off. So great adjustment by this whole team.
See our pole sitter there, Casey Mears, in the 1 car with Tim Fedewa in the 12 car behind him. Tim qualified 14th. Casey getting his 3rd Busch pole of the year. And, of course, Tim Fedewa, what he'd like to accomplish, like a lot of guys going into this last race of the season, is get to victory lane before this thing ends.
Exactly.
Jeff, what I'm noticing out there during this practice session, we came here a year ago. This racetrack had been reconfigured. It basically, it was essentially flat, and they put what we call progressive banking in it. At the bottom of the racetrack, it's 18 degrees. It goes up to about 19 degrees, where you see these guys running now up to 20 degrees, and already we're seeing these guys move up the racetrack, and we had great racing here a year ago, lots of side-by-side racing.
And people were testing that outside line. There were guys running right up against the wall. You see the preferred line is the dark area pretty much through the center of the track, but people will try to pass on the high side of the track because of that progressive banking.
Yeah, a lot of the guys that I've talked to that came there and tested, they all said the track had lost a little bit of grip in this particular tire this year. They feel like the upper groove is exactly where it's going to wind up being, Rick. Will not be surprised as if this practice progresses, the cars will eventually start moving up and work that upper groove in.
Now, when I look at this group right here, we talked about Tim Fedewa, Jason Keller in the 22 car. He's one of those guys that we never believed would not have won a race so far this year. He's 7th in the points. He's trying to get to victory lane. When I look behind him, and Mike McLaughlin in the 25 car, his future is unknown for next year. Ashton Lewis Jr. will be taking this car over. Mike got in this race car back at Bristol in August when Bobby Hamilton Jr. decided to leave this race team, so he'd like to get to victory lane as well.
A lot of changes taking place at the end of the season. Most people call it silly season, but things taking place with drivers still looking for rides. A guy like Mike Bliss, who had success this year, found victory lane, and now he's looking for a ride for next year.
And here's a guy that found victory lane earlier in the season, Justin Labonte in the 44 car, won the Chicago race. Now his future is known for next year because he will be moving over to the Haas Automation car that Jason Leffler started the year off in, the 00 car.
Yeah, we talk about guys who haven't got victories. Here is a young man who's got one, and he's running extremely well right now, Larry. Qualified 6th, but he's 2nd in the practice sheet. And he's keeping it really running, basically running Martin Truex down, our series champion. So he's really looking strong early in this practice.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rick Allen, up in the booth, joined by Larry McReynolds and Jeff Hammond. Now, you touched on it a little bit, Larry, the fact that in our top 10, we've got 4 drivers that have not found victory lane. That's an amazing statistic.
Well, when you have drivers like Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. that won a third of the races, it put a damper on a lot of other race teams getting to victory lane. We talked about Jason Keller. David Green sitting 5th in the points. He's not been to victory lane. Ashton Lewis, we talked about. Kenny Wallace. So that's the big agenda here with one race to go, and obviously we can only have one winner. You also talked about the top 3 being locked up in points. We have a dogfight back there at the backside of the 10. A lot of guys just hanging in the top 10. A lot of guys like David Stremme trying to get in the top 10, because just like Nextel Cup, your goals at the beginning of the season is to win the championship. Your second goal, finish in the top 10 in points.
And obviously wanting to get a win at a prestigious track such as Homestead Miami Speedway. But it is difficult because of the new configuration. It virtually is a new racetrack for these guys as of last year.
It really is. And again, as the track starts to wear down and lose its grip, it's going to make people move around and change their setups. But the teams that came down and tested, they noticed the fact that the track had lost some grip. But the key right now, Rick, this morning's practice, key thing is it's cooler than it's going to be when these guys race tomorrow. So you really need to kind of like understand how much the track's going to heat up, and it's going to lose more grip as the track during the course of that race tomorrow. So it's going to be really, really difficult for these teams to get the car really dialed in like they need to. So you got to have a very adjustable car for tomorrow's race.
And the car's taking a little bit of a break right now as Reed Sorensen in the 11 had some smoke coming out of the back of that car. And so we have our first caution of our final practice for the NASCAR Busch Series at Homestead Miami Speedway. Paul Menard in the 11. That was the smoker that came out. We'll be back with more from Miami. Welcome back to Homestead Miami Speedway. Safety crews are on the track right now because of that. Paul Menard went zinging by, and when smoke comes out, Larry, it can never mean anything good.
And you see right here, the crew knows it's not good. They're going to back the car in the garage area. They will change the engine. The bad news about that, besides the engine blowing up, he had qualified 3rd. So going to a backup engine, that means he will have to start this race at the rear of the field tomorrow, Dave.
And catching up, Paul Menard right now, who unfortunately had to bring his car in here, Paul, way too early after a great qualifying run. What'd that sound like? Not good.
Not good. Metal hitting metal, and that's never good. But we'll put another good DI engine in and be ready for the race tomorrow.
Talk about your qualifying lap and how important that was for you to put this thing up front.
Yeah, it looked like we're having the all DI front row there for a little bit. Then Casey Mears came in and spoiled it. But congratulations to him. And I was just looking for a good run tomorrow, and just got a little more work to do. That's all.
Have you talked about how your backup car relates to this one? How close it is?
Well, the engine's down just a little bit, but not much. I mean, we'll still have a pretty good piece in, and should be pretty strong tomorrow, I guess.
All right, Tony Gibson, the driver, and the guys will go after it, and we'll go to Bobby D.
Well, Dave, we are inside Robbie Gordon's transport. You can see his Fruit of the Loom helmet here, his gloves, and his Hans device. Well, why is this here? It's because Robbie is not here, but they have this waiting just in case he does arrive during this practice session. Robbie's been running the Baja 1000 all week, and the crew tells me as of late last night, he was actually in the lead, but he still hasn't arrived. The crew doesn't know exactly where he is. They don't even know if he's sleeping someplace right now, but they're hoping he does arrive here. Dave Gilliland, the Winston West star, in that number 55. He qualified the car pretty well. He thinks of it as an opportunity of a lifetime. He was also one of those competitors for the Roush truck ride this past week at Darlington Raceway. One is one of the top 4 candidates for that particular ride, but right now Dave in the car, and Robbie, guys, is MIA.
Yeah, Bob, it was my understanding, talking to Robbie's people this week, he was going to try to run up until about 10 o'clock local time last night, hop on a jet airplane, try to sleep a little bit getting here, and be here in time enough for this practice, and then in time for Nextel Cup practice and qualifying as well.
But how difficult is that to be, obviously, if he is leading the race, to get out of that vehicle and give the seat up to someone else?
Yeah, he's out there driving a truck that gets about 20 inches of shock travel. He'll have to come here to this Busch car, gets about 4 or 5 inches of shock travel.
Yeah, out there dodging all the boulders and the jackrabbits and the Gila monsters and everything out there in the Baja. But knowing the kind of competitor Robbie is, it will be difficult for him to get out of that truck. But he also understands his responsibilities to sponsor here in the Busch Series as well as the Richard Childress Racing. So he'll be here. He may miss this practice, but he's got a good substitute right now. He's already shown that the car works really well, and they'll do a really good job having it set up. And the way Robbie normally does his business, it won't make any difference if he's got any practice or not. He'll still be coming to the front when they drop the green flag.
Let's talk a little bit about this practice here. Robbie Gordon's missing right now this happy hour practice. Paul Menard lost an engine in this happy hour practice. This is the final happy hour practice for Busch Series. In 2005, I talked to Joe Vallis, Busch Series director. Next year, the entire 35 race schedule for the Busch Series will do a practice, qualify, impound, race the race cars. No happy hour next year for this Busch Series.
Guys, I know it's an effort to try to save money, but I often wonder if that's going to be the right thing to do. I know to me, that's a pretty big change for the full season. To do it off and on, and like they've done it this year, I think it's been, really a smart move in certain places to try to condense the days. And a lot of these racetracks we come to, I feel like, these guys are going to be put under an extreme amount of pressure to get that kind of practice in and make it work. When the racetrack still is not going to have a lot of rubber on there. And you know how important that is. The more rubber that goes down the racetrack changes, and you have to adjust to that.
Yeah, I mean, the big intent, Rick and Jeff, of NASCAR doing this is to try to save the team's money. I question that. Now, two racetracks that I know it will save money is Daytona and Talladega because, Jeff, it's endless the amount of money that teams will spend trying to run those two quick qualifying laps at those two racetracks. The biggest thing that I know the teams hope for, if they're going to go to this format, is cut some days off that we're at the racetrack. Instead of being there 3 days, let's only be there 2 days. I know the intent is next year on the norm to practice on Friday, qualify Saturday morning, race Saturday afternoon in the Busch Series.
Well, and saving money as far as tires as well. There's another maybe set of tires that you're not going to be going through in a happy hour.
And that brings up a good point. Another thing that Joe told me that I like what they're going to do with the Busch Series next year, they're going to go to the Truck Series type tire rule. Instead of limiting how many tires you can change during a race, they're going to give you 5 sets of tires when you check in, and you use them to your discretion. If you want to burn them all up in practice, have at it. If you want to save them all for the race, have at it.
And there's a guy right there that's looking forward to 2005. That's Ashton Lewis, and he is, I know, sorry to have to see his family team go away, but he's got a great opportunity in front of him, Rick.
Well, and he also probably does not want to go to the impound rule, especially after yesterday, because he had problems, right, Dave?
Indeed he did, Rick. And speaking of finals, guys, as you mentioned, Jeff, final race for this team-owned number 46. Ashton moving to the 25 car next year. But I talked to crew chief Charlie Lewis about this qualifying run and why he had to take a provisional. And I talked to Ashton himself while he was in the garage a minute ago, and both confirmed they were going for the pole. And sometimes when you do that, your car gets out from under you. And Ashton got loose going into turns 1 and 2, just blew the lap, and then they had to take a provisional and start at the rear of this field. First run, a little bit free going into the corner, a little bit free through the center. They changed the left rear spring, made a track bar adjustment. They're trying to improve this ride right now.
But this team has been so solid all year long, even without sponsorship on that car. I look back at Darlington last week. I thought he was going to win that race. Came up a little short, finished second, and he did finish 5th here a year ago.
Fast out onto the track, Casey Kane qualified that 38 4th. He'll start on the outside of row 2.
He is the winner from this race a year ago, too.
Buckpole qualifying takes place next here on Speed. As someone takes a little bit of a ride through the infield there. I believe that was Joe Nemechek trying to get on pit road, but having problems. Stay tuned for Buckpole qualifying. That will be coming up next. Let's go down to, actually, before you put that point in, let's head down to Bob Dillon.
Rick, it wouldn't be a complete weekend for Greg Biffle without this right here. Some scrapes on the right rear quarter panel. Of course, Greg Biffle always putting the pedal to the metal. He is one of the hardest drivers on the circuit, and he did this actually yesterday. Spun during the practice session, qualified 17th. I said, Greg, what happened? Usually you're up there in the top 10. He says, don't worry. This car is excellent in race trim right now. The team trying to fine-tune on it just a little bit. Car pushing very tight, won't turn in the corners, so they're doing a spring change and some other chassis adjustments on this number 60 machine.
I think I know what Joe Nemechek in the 87 car was doing. He's on the access road where you come on the pit road, and there is no pit road speed there, but that's where they enter pit road, and I think Joe was testing the waters for tomorrow in case these guys have to make a green flag stop, because pit road speed does not start till right there. So he was trying to see how fast he could get around that entrance access road.
And we talked about the progressive banking on the track. Obviously, it's flat on that access road, and so you don't have any help from the banking around this track coming in.
And Rick, probably that pit access road has got a little bit of what I call debris on it, and it's dirt. So when you got down there, hot tires, sandy, the way he went, got some real competition around and go down the back straight. A lot of guys going off there in turn 3.
Jamie McMurray had a pretty good run yesterday qualifying. Dave, I believe, standing by with that car.
And trying to keep a streak alive, Rick. Remember the last 2 races in the Busch Series, he has won, conferring right now with his crew chief, Blake Bainbridge, by the way, who is wearing a headset that says Rusty on the back of it. I wonder who belongs to that particular headset. Anyway, Jamie, right now, the car a little bit tight in the corners and off of the corners. Blake told me they're going to make a spring rate adjustment to the right front, take that down a little bit, help this car turn a little bit better for the current 2-time-in-a-row winner, Jamie McMurray.
And Dave, that's the challenge at this racetrack. I'm sure yesterday in qualifying they had these noses taped up, not letting any air flow through. These cars probably were a little free, a little loose. I think that's the reason some cars got in trouble qualifying. But Homestead will be Homestead no matter what type the configuration is. As rubber gets down on the racetrack, the more you run into a run, the more the front end wants to push, wants to slide the front wheels.
I mentioned silly season earlier about drivers moving out of current rides, one of those being Ron Hornaday. He'll go back to the Truck Series, a 2-time champion in that series. He is now already signed a contract with Kevin Harvick to drive the Goodwrench number 6 next year.
And that right there should be a pretty exciting ride as far as the Truck Series guys are concerned, because Ron knows how to get the job done down in the Truck Series. We hate to see him, go back there, but it's going to be a good addition as far as Kevin Harvick racing is concerned. And I know that Ron Hornaday would love to be able to cap off this season with a victory, to be able to say, yep, see what you're going to be missing next year, guys.
Well, of course, he did win at Milwaukee in June, but the biggest thing he wants to do, the entire time he has been driving for Richard Childress Racing in this 2-car for 2 consecutive years, no DNFs. In fact, Ron has been in 72 consecutive Busch Series races without a DNF.
That's pretty amazing to not have a DNF. Our champion might do that very thing this season as well.
Welcome back to Homestead Miami Speedway. Jennifer Jo Cobb, a new female in the NASCAR Busch Series, qualified 28th. Not a bad run in her first ever attempt. So far, Jennifer, how's things going in this happy hour session?
We've just been able to get out one time. Obviously that first time you're just working the bugs out, being real smart, making sure things are going to work out. All weekend we've battled a little bit of a tight condition in the center of the corner. The crew did an awesome job of getting that out for qualifying, obviously, and now we're just working on it, making sure we can be up front at the end of this race tomorrow.
Saw team owner Ed Renzi talking to you. Just a big learning experience for you, I'm sure, here at Homestead.
It really is, and I'm definitely not above saying I have a lot to learn, and I'm very grateful for Vassarette and Keith Coleman Racing, and I'm also grateful for Ed Renzi, Todd Braun, other team owners who have really helped me, and that just feels so good. It helps my confidence level, I think, to have that kind of support all around the Busch Series garage.
I'll tell you what, guys, she is impressing a lot of people in this garage area. She ran a couple of ARCA races this year, did very well in those as well.
An amazing thing, there were 53 Busch Series cars that attempted to qualify, and she was a go or go home. She had to make that top 38 for her to qualify 28th. Pretty impressive.
Very impressive, because a lot of people that normally struggle here. We talk about what happened to Ashton Lewis. There's a veteran right there going to try to settle a pole, makes a little bobble. He winds up using provisional, and she puts down a very solid qualifying effort. He winds up 28th. I mean, that's really quite incredible when you come in as your first E-Series start.
Charter number 60 of Greg Biffle. A busy weekend for him, Larry.
Little triple duty for Greg Biffle. He'll be making his very first NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series start later on this afternoon here at Homestead, Miami, as well as running in the Nextel Cup race on Sunday. Greg, pretty awesome season. 5 wins this year. He's been feast or famine. Speaking of truck promos, there's your series, Rick.
How about that? I get to work later on this afternoon as well in the Homestead Ford 200 as we wrap up the 2004 season. It is a very tight battle. Bobby Hamilton, Dennis Setzer at the top of the charts, looking to settle that today.
And I've been pretty impressed with you. We're about halfway through this practice, and you have not called a single car a truck.
Well, I think it's difficult when I'm calling into truck races not to call those cars sometimes too after doing practices and things.
Especially
so I'll try not to
working with
screw
that guy right there.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's one of your cohorts right there, Michael Waltrip, and that's kind of an unusual color for the Aaron's Dream Machine, but Michael's having a pretty good effort. Looks like right now during this practice. I think he's trying to get his car to run up top. I would not be surprised if we're in this practice to see Michael Waltrip right up against the edge of this wall. He normally likes to run high.
And I think the biggest thing that Michael Waltrip is trying to do in this final race, even though he had a win earlier in the year, is get this race team back on track. He has not had the season that he even remotely anticipated having after the way he ran last year and the year before.
Let's go down to Dave and see who he's caught up with.
Steve Addington, crew chief for the 20 car. You and Mike Bliss went to a 3rd place finish last week at Darlington. How's it going here at Homestead?
We started off happy hour just scuffing tires for tomorrow, and right now we're making our first run, see how it goes right here.
And Steve, you want to give me the whole driver and crew list for next year on this 20 car right now?
Well, you know, JD and them guys in Rockwell, we decided to go, you know, with the rookie next year. Denny Hamlin should be in the car, and it's going to be, you got to go for the future, I guess, right now, the trend.
Okay, right now trying to get his driver, Mike Bliss, the best finish he can here at Homestead before he vacates this ride. Bobby?
Well, Dave, 5 is the lucky number for Kyle Busch, and not just because it is his car number. He's got 5 victories on the year, but he desperately wants another one. Qualified 5th yesterday during the session here. So far, so good in happy hour. Car, I understand, just started out a little bit loose, Kyle.
Yeah, it did. We started out just a titch on the loose side, and we kind of developed more so the tight side. So we're going to work on a couple things, try some stuff, see if we can't make it a little bit better. Right now the drivability's there, but we just want to get a little bit more speed out of it if we can on the long run. So we'll see what the number 5 Lowe's Chevrolet can do here for the race.
We were talking this morning about that victory which you so eagerly want to close out the season.
Yeah, it'd definitely be great in order to get a victory. You know, have 2 second-place finishes and a win in the last 4 races. That'd be good. So all we can do is go out there and try and hope for the best, and of course send our thoughts and prayers out to the Hendrick family and all of the other families. So we can try to get one more for him before the year's out.
That would be a big win for Kyle and this entire Hendrick organization.
And the most amazing thing about Kyle Busch's season, yeah, he has clinched 2nd place in the points. I know he wanted to win the championship, but you want to know how much more competitive the Busch Series was this year versus last year? At this point, he has scored 266 more points than Brian Vickers scored last year. Brian Vickers won the championship last year.
And winning the championship. Kenny Wallace, another driver that would like to reach victory lane, has not done that this year. Welcome back to Homestead Miami Speedway. Trackside will be on site tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern, live on Speed Channel. Larry, you'll serve a little double duty today as well.
And we are going to have the man that has probably been about the hottest on the Nextel Cup circuit, but he's not in the chase for the championship, but he did clinch that $1 million bonus for finishing 11th. He's going for 3 straight Busch Series wins. Jamie McMurray will join us. The Truck Series champion will be out there, and we'll just have a big old time in our final trackside event.
Yeah, I think I'm going to cry. I'm kind of missing it as far as that's concerned. But the thing is, Rick, why don't you come on out there and join us? You've got nothing else better to do. Hey, and bring this guy with you, too. We can bring Wally Dolan back out there. We'll bring him on. We've not ever had Wally on the show.
Wally's a hard worker.
You know, we ought to invite Wally to come out there and join us.
That would be neat.
Sitting there, he's passing Jennifer Cobb. Way to go, Wally. Looking good, buddy.
Qualified 33rd for tomorrow's race.
That was kind of
a
nail biter for these guys yesterday, because he would have been about a go or go home, so he was very close to not making the show. Dave, how's things going for Wally this morning?
I just talked to him, stuck my head in the window there, and he said a little bit better. Not a whole lot better for him right now. Biggest problem right now is the car is very, very tight. They changed 3 springs on this last stop to try to correct that situation, but not a whole lot of fun for him right now. And Jeff, you know something? We have so many cameras and microphones on that car, you could probably talk to him right now and invite him to, you know, be on the show, I think.
You know what? I'll be glad to do that. Right now, the car looking pretty good. I've been watching him go through the corner, and he's making pretty good time through the center. Well, he bobbled just a little bit right in the center 1 and 2. Didn't look like he got back to the gas like he needed to then. But, yeah, we'd love to have Wally on. We can talk a little bit about hunting. We can talk a little bit about, you know, working television, how everything kind of goes through his career.
Let's talk strategy of racing first, though, about this one. As far as passing on this track with the progressive banking, can you go on the bottom and the top on this track, or is there a preferred line to make passes?
I think it's where your car will work the best. I think we'll see some cars run at the bottom of one end of the racetrack and up the racetrack at the other. But I want to go back to something that when we talked about Steve Addington, the crew chief for Mike Bliss in the 20 car, something he mentioned, that they are scuffing their tires. And what that basically means is they're taking all of their new sets of sticker tires that they're going to be racing tomorrow, and they're going out there. They're not running them real hard probably, but they're running them 3 or 4 laps just to get them heat soaked one time. And you accomplish 2 things there. That will help the temperature of these tires tomorrow in the race because they've been cured. The other thing, because we do see some inconsistency in the feel of set of tires here, it lets that driver know this set of tires feels like this set of tires feel like that, because with this racetrack being this new, tires do not fall off as much as they would at like Darlington last week. There you see right there on the left, you see a sticker new tire.
That's new.
And over to the right, that is what we would call a set of scuffs, a set of tires that's been run.
A lot of drivers mentioning that they were going out for one hard lap, then they'd bring them in, take those tires off, and that was their scuff. Just knocking the new off of them.
And I think the biggest thing, it lets them know what that particular set of tires feels like.
Matt Kenseth, year-ago champion of the Nextel Cup Series. He will be doing double duty tomorrow. Race fans, once again, it's your chance to vote. Nextel presents the 3rd annual Fans Voice Awards at NASCAR.com. Log on now and come back each week to vote. Voice your vote. NASCAR.com.
Easy for you to say.
Well, it's normally easier until you put 2 G's back to back like that.
Glad they got you to read it instead of me.
See David Green, the 37 car there. Thing I want to clean up is, I mentioned a while ago with Joe Nemechek, when you saw him come this excess road right here, and I was talking about him testing the waters. I did make a mistake because in tomorrow's race in the Busch Series as well as the Nextel Cup race, the cars will actually do a normal entrance off of the turn 4 area. Once again, that's the commit cones where they either have to come to pit road or stay on the racetrack, plus that's where pit road speed will start. So I was wrong. They only use this access road during practice.
No, but you were right about one thing. He did make a mistake. Because he just about wrecked his race car coming in so fast and getting all over it.
But you do use the excess road as you leave pit road. You go around here through 1 and 2, and you'll come up on the racetrack, blend in at the exit of turn 2.
Jimmy Spencer showing us exactly how it's done as he comes onto the track for practice.
Jimmy's always a good example of how to do things.
And there could be a couple of reasons that they would be using that access road coming off the racetrack during practice. One, if you get a plug check or something, you're not trying to dive in off a pit road right in the middle of turn 4. Plus, we talked about the banking difference between the racetrack and the flat. When you dive off right there, it can also tear the valence, the bottom of the front bumper area up. So there could be several reasons during practice it makes much better sense to use that access road.
We got some good side-by-side racing right there coming up off of 1 and 2. Looks like Aaron Fike and that Brett Sherman right there in the 58 car. Racing real aggressively.
Martin Truex Jr. in that Bass Pro Shops number 8. Riding along.
All right.
Already celebrating his championship.
Sums it up right there. 2004 Busch champion.
Bobby, what's happening with Martin Truex Jr.?
Well, so far 7th quick in this happy hour session. Paul Menard, his DEI teammate, down here in the garage area. These guys, you saw before that he blew up earlier in this practice session. He's trying to learn something from his teammate Martin Truex Jr. right now, who has a loose car on the racetrack. They just changed the front shocks in that baby. Now they went back out in the racetrack, and they're trying to get that car dialed in. Right now, just really experimenting. Talked to the crew just a short time ago. They said they have a great baseline, but in these final few minutes, what they're trying to do is trying to find that extra edge. Dave?
Bob, this is Reed Sorensen's number 41 in the garage right now. Just spoke with Brian Patty, the crew chief, about what they wanted to do with the car from this point on, and he said, you know what, we've got it pretty much where we want it handling wise. Now we're going to adjust it for fuel mileage. Jeff, if you were Brian Patty and you had to think about that, if you had your car handling exactly the way you wanted, you were going for fuel mileage, what would you change?
First thing I start looking at is how much more we can lean the engine out, as well as making the car to where he can just roll through the corner and not have to use as much brake to slow it down. He needs to understand how to work that throttle. A lot of times with young drivers, they're really aggressive getting in the corner. They drive off in there, jump on the brake, and slam back on the throttle a lot more than they should. If they roll in and out of it, treat it like they got an egg underneath their foot, they'll save some fuel there, as well as what kind of gear ratio do you have in this car? Can you change a gear and kind of hit a gear where you could save some fuel? All these things can kind of come into play, and you don't want to leave anything on the table when you're trying to win a race. That's exactly what Brian Patty's trying to do.
And we certainly know the more these cars push, the more fuel they'll use.
Shane Meal, currently 12th fastest in this practice. Final practice continuing from Homestead Miami Speedway, and we'll ride along with Martin Truex Jr.
Something I want to point out, you hear us talk about it, you hear the NBC guys talk about it, a Revlander chip. There it is right there, that little white chip, and you can change the RPMs on that Revlander chip, and what that does is when it reaches a certain amount of RPMs at the end of the straightaway, it'll start killing cylinders. Now these teams are turning these engines about 9,600 or 9,800 RPMs. Now we talked about the things that are changing for 2005. Just like in Nextel Cup, the Busch Series will have a gear rule next year. In other words, the Busch Series is going to give these teams a window of 10 points of gear. The goal is to try to turn about 9,000 RPMs next year.
One thing I want to talk about, Larry, is you listen from inside this onboard, from inside Martin Truex's car. Listen how he rolls off in the corner. That's what we're talking about. Off the throttle real easy, lets the car float down the corner. Now he's back in the throttle, feeding it real easy, a little more. Now, as he comes up on the straightaway, he's wide open down this straightaway. Again, as he gets to the end of the straightaway, you hear him kind of feather out of it. Not a lot of brake, just roll out of it. Very fast racetrack, very smooth racetrack. You can tell by the onboard camera here, this is a very smooth racetrack. Looks like his car is working really well. He's gaining on the cars in front of him. This guy is now pulled over. He's going to make Justin Labonte's pass and coming in the pit area. But this is what he's looking to do, is just make the car roll off in the corner real easy, pick the throttle back up. He'll come down the throttle as he comes to the excellent corner, wide open back on the straightaway.
The thing that's interesting, Jeff, and I think you pointed out, he don't just jump out of the throttle.
No.
He rolls out of it, and that tends to upset the car the least amount. And the goal, and you'll hear it right here, he's picking that throttle up almost well before the center of the corner. Good working race car.
'29 car back out onto the track. Kevin Harvick making another appearance in the Busch Series. Bobby, what's happening with Kevin?
Well, third fastest in this happy hour session right now. Kevin really likes his race car. He says as the sun comes out here, of course, we started this practice session under cloudy conditions, the car getting more and more loose, but that's just common when the sun does come out. Right now, this team just scuffing tires, and you guys just mentioned that just a short time ago. Right now, the question down here, to scuff or not to scuff. These tires fastest about the 8th or 9th lap. About half the teams are scuffing tires, preparing them for tomorrow. Martin Truex Jr., he says, I don't know which my car likes. As far as Clint Bowyer and his teammate Kevin Harvick, though, they like the scuffed tires. So that's a big debate down here in the garage area so far, guys.
Well, something that can answer what you need to do also, you only have about 50 minutes. If you've got a car that's driving good and you pretty much have everything worked out, you can spend that time scuffing tires. But it takes a little bit of time to scuff tires. If you need to work on the handling of your car, you don't need to worry about scuffing those tires right now.
Looking at Kevin Harvick's car out there, guys. He's got the employer support of the Guard Reserve on it, which is always good to see. Great organization to be associated with. Richard Childers is really big on this group right here. And Dave, I believe you got some more information for us, don't you, bud?
Hey guys, just at the 38 car right now, talk to the crew. They're just tweaking the handling on this car right now. And you talked about time remaining to scuff tires. Big guy in the background is Ben. Ben is a tire specialist. He doesn't know yet whether or not they're going to have to scuff tires. But when they do, they're going to have to do it fast. But they haven't made that decision yet, and we're running out of time in happy hour.
And this is one of those teams I talked about in the opening. Right now, Casey, and he's running a limited Busch schedule, but he's 12th in points. He's only 7 points out of 11th, and he's only 57 points out of 10th behind Jason Leffler, who's not even entered into this race.
So he's got a golden opportunity to climb up in the top 10 if they have a good run. Don't have any problems. So making the right choices as we look at Paul Andrews, crew chief on the car. discussing things with Casey, trying to figure out what do we need to do to make this car so we can win again like he did a year ago.
Joe Nemechek not trying out that access road as he had problems getting off of it earlier. We continue with final practice. For this. And welcome back to final practice for the NASCAR Busch Series from Homestead Miami Speedway. Mike Wallace on the track looking to visit victory lane again. He had a great win at Daytona earlier this year. And Dave, I believe you've also got one of the winners from earlier this year, Justin Labonte.
From Chicagoland, Justin here now, out of the car, done with practice. How good is your number 44 this week?
It's really comfortable. It's been fast since first lap on the track, so I'm ready for tomorrow's race. I think we got a great car, and try to get this Coast Guard Chevy in victory lane.
When did you first visit this track for testing, and how have you adapted to its high banking and high speed?
Actually, yesterday was the first day I've seen the place, so I ran here when it was real flat, but with this configuration, I've never been here, and I liked it the first lap I went out there. It's a cool track. The banking, you know, it's kind of stepped, and you can kind of move all around. It reminds me of a little Michigan or something, but I really like it. It's a fun track.
Driver adapts, good equipment, fast laps. Bob?
Well, Dave, Kenny Wallace and I just talking about how this track is showing its true colors. What do you mean by that, Kenny?
Well, you know, last year we came here and the asphalt was all new. There was a lot of grip. You could run clear up to the wall, but now it's almost like Darlington. If you look at the track on TV, you can see that we have marbles now, you know, and there's a distinctive black groove that we're all working up higher, and when the Cup cars get on it, you know, they'll push it up a little bit more. But, hey, my Stacker 2 Chevy's running really good. We're all happy with the way it's running right now, but it's getting hotter, and so this is more like the race is going to be tomorrow. So we're still tuning on it.
19th quick in this session. He'll start 26th tomorrow.
And that's the things these drivers and teams hope as we look at Casey Mears, the one-car posted right now. He's second quickest in this practice. They hope it just gets beaming hot during this practice session to simulate the conditions they may have tomorrow in the heat of the day of that race.
We always talk about tweaking and trying to get the car to work like you want to. And to try to explain that a little bit better, you want the car balanced. You want all four tires working, so again, the driver goes off in the corners. It turns like you want it to, entering the corners. It feels under you so you can get back in the throttle like we saw earlier on Martin Truex's car and not feel like it's trying to, the back end trying to fly away from you and hit that outside wall. Track conditions like today when it's changed from cool to getting hotter, it's what you've got to get your car balanced for. You've got to have it where you can tune it and adapt to it. A lot of drivers are better at adapting to cars than others, and a lot of times crews have to work out much harder to get the desired balance. And the key thing is here, you don't have the luxury of jumping down on pit road like you do in the Nextel Cup and putting fresh tires on your race car. You've only got 3 sets of tires, so you've got to go and run those set of tires to a certain point before you put a fresh set on. So balance is crucial at any racetrack, but more so in this division right here.
And if that car feels good for 10 or 15 laps, what you have to encourage that driver to do, run me another 10 or 15, because it's when this car gets about half down on a fuel load, which really makes that car pick up front nose weight, that'll make it push more, that you've got to get to that point to where you can know if your car is going to be good for those long runs.
And they're also working, obviously, on making sure fuel mileage, if it comes down to be a fuel mileage race, they want to know how far they can go, how long they can push it.
See Reed Sorensen in the 41 car there. Now this team won Phoenix a couple of weeks ago with Jamie McMurray driving that race car. And we talked about Brian Patty earlier, the crew chief on this car. He has won this Busch Series race here 3 times with Joe Nemechek, the only multiple winner of the Busch Series here at Homestead.
I believe we got some more information down in the garage area on the 38 car.
Going back out, guys, and just talk with Paul Andrews, the crew chief. They are going to scuff a couple of sets of tires, and it really does 2 things. It sets them up to use those scuff sets, but Paul also told me it lets them know what the car does on fresh sticker tires as well.
And Dave, Casey Kane right now is the fastest in this practice, and there you see Robbie Gordon. He may get a few laps in this 55 car, fresh in from Baja, California.
He might have to hustle if he wants to get a few laps, Larry. And again, just having an idea what the car is going to do when he hits this racetrack and understanding how much grip the track has will be a very important part so he can really get after tomorrow during the early part of the race.
As we watch Casey Kane in the 38 car, it appears he may be out there scuffing those tires. Now, Robbie Gordon's car, they talked about earlier, was qualified by David Gilliland, but he'll have to go to the rear of the field because of that driver change, but he'll be back there in pretty good company, as we know, with Paul Menard making the engine change.
take a look at the starting lineup for tomorrow's Ford 300. Casey Mears on the pole for the 3rd time. Martin Truex Jr., our 2004 champion, will start on his outside.
And there you see Robbie Gordon. We just talked about him in row 4. He'll have to go to the rear of the field, but a lot of young guys up there. You saw Paul Menard as well.
Paul Menard will have to go to the back as well because they'll have to change an engine he blew earlier in this happy hour.
When they drop that green flag, I'd watch that row 9 right there. Greg Biffle and Matt Kenseth, we know they'll be good on long runs.
Again, mentioned that quite a few drivers attempted to qualify for this event.
We talked to Jennifer Cobb earlier. Good qualifying run for her. Now it'll be interesting. The biggest thing she needs to do tomorrow is run all of the laps.
See Wally Dahlin back here in row 17. He'll be looking to try to make his way to the front along with David Stremian, as well as Ashton Lewis, who wound up finishing 2nd last week at Darlington.
Todd Bodine was on that list. And Todd Bodine actually is not going to make the race in the Truck Series, which he's been primarily running the latter half of this year. He did not qualify, as did these drivers, for the Busch Series.
Yeah, Todd's had 2 wins in the Truck Series this year. Been real strong. And that's kind of a surprise right there, Larry, for me, as far as Jeff Fuller. Normally he's a great qualifier. Mark Green, I think, his new ride. It's the first race I think they've missed so far since they've come on the scene.
Yeah, Jeff Fuller was another one of those cars that crashed on his qualifying run.
Martin Truex Jr. continuing to get a feel. Would love to end with a win at Homestead Miami Speedway. We'll be back with more Final Practice. Coming up later today, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series rounds out its season with the Homestead Ford 200, 3 p.m. Eastern. We come on the air to talk about the battle between Bobby Hamilton and Dennis Setzer, duking it out for the champion of 2004 season for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. And I'm sure they'd like to have somewhat of a Superman on their side, and I guess Robbie Gordon would fit that bill, as he came from Baja after running in the Baja 1000 and now running to his car after his quick change to get into his driver's suit. Gets into that car, straps in, and tries to get a couple minutes out onto the track. And obviously that's very important for him to get a feel for how this car is set up.
This team, though, they've been so solid with Robbie this year. Of course, they won the Richmond race back in September, and they've come close to winning about 4 or 5 races. He plans on running about the same amount of races next year, I think, with this Busch Series team, and hopefully announcing some plans for his Nextel Cup future next year as well soon.
Making a move right now on Randy McDonald down there in 1 and 2. Car looks pretty good right now so far with Robbie behind the wheel. But, Bobby D, you got some more on what's going on with Mr. Gordon?
Well, how about a little update on the Baja 1000? I was just told when Robbie left, he was about 48 minutes ahead with 150 miles to go in that race. He left, somebody else took over. They broke right before the finish line. A heartbreaker for that team. Robbie doing so well out in Baja. But hey, he's still as charismatic as ever. He climbed into that car, gave me the big thumbs up and said, this is fun.
Yeah, I think he's won that Baja 1000 a couple of times.
Robbie Gordon still has the rookie stripe on the back of his car. Well, that being because David Gilliland just got out of that.
I'm sure that doesn't bother Robbie at all, but he is definitely a competitor. I know that he told Larry, you and I, just a few weeks ago that running the Baja, he's going to be coming and finishing up the series, here with Busch and Nextel Cup, and then he's going to be going to Europe and be running some races over there. So he's got a busy schedule. Even though the season's ending for a lot of these drivers, he's still going strong.
Man loves to race. He and Greg Biffle.
When you find a race car, one of those guys out there, they'll be in it driving.
Can you not throw Kenny Schrader into that mix as well?
Oh, Kenny Schrader. I mean, I would hate to have to pay his fuel bill for his airplane, because I'm telling you, he's everywhere in every kind of car. As we watch Robbie Gordon coming around the access road, bringing his car back down in the garage area, and I'm sure it'd be interesting to get comments about, hey, how does your car feel? How does it feel to get out of a truck that's been bouncing up and down the Baja 1000 and jump inside this race car on this smooth racetrack here in Homestead, Miami?
See Ron Hornaday right there in the 2 car. Right now he's 22nd fastest, but I think Bobby D is with the man that was 2nd fastest in practice, but quickest yesterday.
That's right. Casey Mears on the pole for tomorrow's race here. And Casey does like his car, but he said as the sun comes out, it's getting tighter and tighter. This car has been in and out of the garage for the past few minutes. They've changed front shocks, rear springs, and now a front bar on the car. But, you know, that's pretty interesting, guys. You would think as the sun comes out, the track gets greasy, his car would get loose. How come it's getting tight?
Not totally true. What we have seen, guys, is when your car is sliding the front end, sliding the front tires, pushing, as the track loses grip and the track temperature comes up, whatever end is sliding slides more when it gets hot.
Exactly right, Larry. When you go off in that corner and you lose that grip, if the front end is not hooking and doing what it needs to do, you haven't got that downforce in the front end, you're going to slide the front end, and the whole car is just going to slide up the racetrack. And that's the problem they're trying to work on right now as we go back inside Martin Truex's car. And again, Larry, I think his car still looks like it's been working pretty good watching him go around the racetrack.
As Casey Mears comes out onto the track, Martin Truex Jr. closing down his practice session as he brings that one back into the garage. Casey Mears, final adjustments with a few seconds left.
He'll have to evaluate this change quick.
Very quick, because
very
practice
few laps
is definitely rounding up. They're about to throw the caution flag to finalize the last practice for the NASCAR Busch Series. They'll be on the track tomorrow to round out their season, and Casey Mears will lead them to the green flag.